The Three Stages of Overcoming Social Anxiety by Aaron Morton of the Confidence Lounge. Imagine for a moment you are going about your day, maybe a bit of daydreaming, doing a bit of work, all feeling like a pretty average day, I suspect. Suddenly you discover you are out of food, so need to go to the supermarket. To most people, this would simply mean taking a trip to the supermarket. For people with social anxiety, this can be the start of an onslaught of catastrophe thinking and feeling that would make sticking pins in their eyes more appealing than a trip to the local supermarket. Social anxiety is a big deal and a roadblock for anyone looking to increase their confidence, which is why I will discuss it today and provide insight into how to manage the effects and even overcome social anxiety. So what is social anxiety? Social anxiety can be described as an intense response to situations that involve being around other people. A component of social anxiety is the perception that you are being judged by other people around you and ridiculed in anything you do. The effect of this is blushing, sweaty palms, and a change in the rate of breathing, which is exacerbated by the continual feeling other people are watching you. An example of this was a woman that came to see me because she was terrified of being in large, built-up public places. She had never ventured into the local shopping mall, and when she was in public places, she would get a nauseating feeling in the pit of her stomach, and her panicking thoughts would begin to spiral out of control. This would extend into her ability to drive as she was scared. She would get lost in case she found herself in a large public area. Luckily, social anxiety can be overcome, and after working with me, my client was able to attend a big festival that had lots of people and very little space, without panicking, and actually was able to have fun, which is normally the last thing that socially anxious people experience. One piece of my confidence model is social intelligence. Now, we are social creatures. A reason we were able to evolve aside from opposable thumbs and developing our ability to stand upright is that we taught each other skills and we told each other stories that got passed on to other people. Strength in numbers is not just a cliche. It is a truth. We work better as part of a tribe. Being socially anxious is a threat to us being in a tribe because it diminishes our options. Our most fluid is when we are part of a tribe, whether that be family, groups of friends, for example, and we feel comfortable being part of other tribes, such as joining a club, for example. Social anxiety creates a fear around the context where new tribes can be built, such as social events, clubs, areas where there are a lot of people. Now, the most common solution for people with social anxiety is to avoid most places that would trigger an anxiety attack. Whilst prompting fewer chances of having an anxiety attack, the problem with this method is twofold. Number one, it creates an opportunity to provide new mental markers, so prolonging the state of anxiety. If you don't go there, you can't create new mental markers. Number two, the taboo around what triggers the anxiety remains and even solidifies further. Now, in a recent article, I detailed how anxiety is created and the effect it can have on your confidence. To summarize, we take in information from our environment via our senses. One of the first areas in the brain this information feeds through to is the amygdala, which is a diamond-shaped commonly thought of as the fear center. If the information is determined to be not of importance, it gets discarded. If the information is seen as being important, one of two things will happen next. Number one, an immediate response is initiated without the need for conscious awareness, or an immediate response is not required. Number two, other parts of the brain will generate from memory experiences that are similar to what you are currently faced with in order to generate a response. Once a patterned response has been generated, the final piece is the narrative that you are aware of in the form of thought and internal dialogue. Social anxiety comes into play in the following form: environment, then the amygdala triggers the stimuli of something of importance, then a pattern is found from memory as a cue of how to respond, then this generates an emotion, tends to be fear, then the feeling is activated, which can be butterflies in the stomach, sweaty palms, breathing quicker, then a narrative is created: I need to get out. The first consideration to realize when looking to overcome social anxiety is that social anxiety is not a fixed state. It is possible to change your response to social situations. In the interest of ease, I've broken the context into 3 sections: before, as in what you can do before you are in a social situation; during, as in how to cope with possible physiological responses whilst in the social situation; and after, how to make use of the experience you have just had in a social situation. So we'll start with before. As a result of the evolution of the brain, we can experience the physiological effects of a situation without actually being in that situation for real. We can feel tense about social situations whilst lying alone in bed with the curtains closed. As a result, in order to counter this, it is important to use that active imagination for better means. Here are 2 methods you can try. How a person feels is a large part that makes up their anxiety. So what better use of time than to practice playing with your feelings? And credit goes to Gary Turner and his book, No Worries. So here we go. So you want to access an experience that causes you to be anxious. Then focus on the feelings in your body. You'll find this easier by closing your eyes. When focused, give the intensity of that feeling a number on a scale of 1 to 10, when 10 is the maximum. Okay, so if that feeling had a color, what color would you choose? Change the color to something you associate as a soothing, relaxing color. Notice the gradual transition into the new color. Now, feelings rarely stay dormant. They tend to be moving. So what I'd like you to do is notice in what direction your feelings are moving in your body. Play with speeding that feeling slower and slower. Now, if that feeling was a shape, what shape would it be? Focus on that shape and begin to shrink it smaller until it becomes a distant dot. Now focus on that dot and notice it coming back into focus, but it's no longer that previous shape, but a new, more exciting and happy shape in the color you previously associated with soothing and relaxed tones. What shape is that? Now open your eyes and notice how that number you give yourself on a scale now. Now we move on to during. Being in the eye of the storm can be the most dangerous situation to be in. The place the socially anxious hate the most is within social context, surrounded by lots of people. However, to overcome the social anxiety, The act of being around people has to occur at some point. Psychiatrists call this exposure therapy. Others call it just getting on with it. With that said, there are a number of tactics you can employ in order to make sure you don't reach for the nearest exit within seconds. So, breathing. The low-hanging fruit of the personal development world, managing your breathing is mission critical in creating a calmer internal state. When you become anxious, you go into your head and fail to realize we are holding our breath and performing shorter breaths in anticipation that is going to kick off. It is important just before you enter into the social context that you intentionally set a rhythm for your breathing. I say this for good reason. It will be harder to remember to focus on your breathing when you're submerged in the very stimuli that you are anxious about. Breathing puts you in a state that makes anxiety harder to be present. The breathing rhythm I teach my clients is very simple, for a simple reason. You don't want to use too much energy thinking about how to do the exercise designed to actually calm you down. The rhythm is inhaling through your nose for 4 seconds, holding it for 1 second, and then exhaling for 4 seconds. And you just repeat. This works firstly because oxygen is flowing through your body and because it resembles more the breathing pattern of someone in a relaxed state, which is what you're aiming for. Sensory-based attention. Anxiety can be accelerated due to 2 factors. One, it seduces you into the war that's going on in your head of destructive self-talk. I can't do this, I'm going to faint, I need to get out of here. And 2, it makes you come up with loads of crazy assumptions about the people around you. They are all looking at me. They think I look stupid. They're laughing at me. Truth is, we make a lot of stuff up in the height of emotion. To counteract this, it's time to go sensory specific simply by asking the question, what am I noticing? The one condition in this exercise is that what you say is only valid if it can be confirmed by a video camera. As an example, imagine you see a guy sat in front of you, and you say, man is sat down with his hands over his face. This is valid because that man, sat down, and hands over face can all be validated by a video camera. The man is upset is not valid because that is an assumption you have come up with yourself. It can't be validated by the video camera. The purpose of this exercise is to reduce assumption-based thinking during a potentially highly emotional context. It also gets your focus out of your head and into what you are noticing around you. To practice, get a timer out on your phone and practice in 5-minute blocks to focus on what you can notice around you. Finally, after, great, you survived. You've got through a social encounter without thinking you're going to die, vomit, or get laughed at by everyone there. But the main objective is to ensure you can consistently go into social contacts without losing half your body weight through sweat. This requires you to think differently about the situations you've been in and the situations you're going to be in the future. Now, there are 2 ways you can begin this process. Firstly, highlight your mini wins. People who aren't anxious about social situations are that way because they haven't created neurological markers on past memories to signal that it is a context to avoid. Whenever they are in a social situation, if nothing is highlighted as traumatic, your brain will give it the okay to be repeated again in the future. In a social situation, the brain of a socially anxious creates another fuck that moment to ingrain the notion these contexts are to be avoided. This means that no matter how small the act within the social context, you have to note it and give yourself a psychological pat on the back in order to create new markers that signify it's actually okay to feel calm and relaxed within social situations. It doesn't matter if your only mini win is that you smile to another person. Note it. As more and more of these mini wins build up, you will find your capacity to be calm in social situations increasing. Start to become aware of all the good things you do, and you'll be surprised how many more you come up with. Next, schedule your next social exposure. The default behavior for socially anxious is avoidance. This has to be counteracted by actively deciding when you are going to be next in a social situation. Once you have done this, begin to visualize yourself in this situation with the added resources you've gained from noticing your mini wins. Visualize how successful you'll be in that social situation, and notice how calm you feel as you engage in the social situation. It's important to do this regularly in order for you to see this way of acting within a social context as normal. To conclude, social anxiety is not fun, and the effects can paralyze an individual and diminish any kind of confidence they possess. My clients have had great results from using these simple techniques, but the ultimate goal is creating a worldview where social anxiety just wouldn't fit. It would be as foreign as a stripper in the Vatican.